Please come back, God of heavenly forces. Look down from heaven and perceive it. Attend to this vine, this root that you planted with your strong hand, this son whom you secured as your very own. This psalm is what we call a lament. It's a time in which the author is offering prayer to God. In the midst of hard situation, offering a prayer to God, lamenting what is happening. Sometimes being angry about what's happening, but believing that God can respond. See, it's not a denial that God is or that God exists. It's a demand for God to respond. And I find something absolutely beautiful in that. That we have this relationship with God, that this author has this relationship with God that gives space to allow us to say, God, you promised something better. I kind of picture this image of somebody letting out anger, and the person who loves them reaches out and just bear hugs them, not to restrain them, but to show an undying love toward them, a care toward them, until finally they just melt into a sobbing mess on their shoulder. God creates that space for us to lament, to be hurt. Here in Psalm 80, we find the psalmist saying, you created this. You began this vine, and now when it's hurting, now when it is struggling, where are you, God? So come back, God of heavenly forces. Come back and care for your vine. Care for the son that you called your own and you created. You almost kind of wait for the psalmist to say, how dare you? How dare you say you love us and then leave us? It's not our time, it's not our place to sit and judge the lament. I could sit and say that this psalmist needs to recognize that God is always there, that God is always with them, that even when it's hardest, God is present. Maybe God's weeping, maybe God is angry for them, but God's present. But the psalmist doesn't need that right now. The psalmist needs the grace and the space that God creates to allow that psalmist to scream and to rant and to be angry. And to trust that there is a love enough to reach out and bear hug this psalmist. So that when he melts into a sobbing mess on God's shoulder, he's at least held. Lament is not a bad thing. Lament is not faithless. Lament is trusting in the arms and the shoulder of God.